Hello and welcome to Hillbilly Cat History. Spiritual Studies. Today we're looking at the Book of John and the Impersonal Life, both books which Elvis had read. He made a lot of notes in the Impersonal Life, and we're getting to look at some of those too. And today we're going to take a look at another special Bible that Elvis owned. Hi Gun, hi TT, thank you so much for coming. We're going to start out with a song. And I played this song, this will be now the 5th time in a row, but it is my new song. It's about Elvis getting married. He got on a plane at midnight to sneak over to Las Vegas. The name of that plane was Christina. But this song also talks about what happened to Red, because he didn't get to come to the wedding. And the song is called Christina at Midnight. Hi Colleen, thank you so much for coming. When we get back, we're going to look at a new Bible.
Slipped out the back with a bullhorn hop over stucco walls where the flashbulbs stop. Joni's got curlers, Joe's got the cash, Danny K's in the cockpit, burning jet fuel fast. Sinatra's bird, she's purring like a prayer. Christina's wings cut the desert air. Red's not on the list, he's pacing the floor, while the collar's got the press in a ballroom wall. Rollers got a sin and a Polaroid grin, but the ring's in a case with the diamonds grinning in. $15 for a license and a lie, while the best men shine with a bullseye tie. Blinded by the flight, wrapped up like a vow in the Vegas night. Blinded by the flight, when a heartbreak hits in the morning light. Oh, we were flying on a secret stream to a chapel dream, but the brother got burned by the wedding machine. Palm Springs whispers, Bland's got the suit, but the real show's hidden in a velvet beat. Mama's flown in, Daddy's eyes are wide, while the Memphis boys are split on the right. Livich opens up his velvet chest, bullhead complaints, diamonds in the west. But Red's got a wound that won't sit still, he's shouting down love from the windowsill. Color's got a script and a phantom plan, he's dealing out silence with a sleight of hand. You got too many, he says with a grin. Let go of the love if you want to win. Blinded by the flight, rammed up like a bow in the Vegas night. Blinded by the flight, when the heartbreak hits you the morning light. Oh, we were flying on a secret stream to a chapel dream, but the brother got burned by the wedding machine. Christina's wheels kissed the tarmac clean, and the ring was slipped before the world had seen. But love, oh love, it don't run on time, it breaks in the silence, not the headline.
Thank you for gathering here at Hillbilly Cat History, where we remember together and listen for the echoes. And if you want to hear more echoes about the wedding, and you want to know more about how the brother got burned by the wedding machine, and you haven't been following the wedding episodes of the live streams, you can still go back into the archive, and you can still watch all those wonderful episodes. You can even see Elvis's wedding ring. Not a lot of people have seen it. So head into the archive if you missed that and check out those back episodes. But right now, we're going to move forward with learning about spiritual books that Elvis read And yesterday we had spoken about this particular book, which was a King James Bible that had been given to him by his uncle Vester and his aunt Cletus. Cletus was Gladys's sister, so she would be Elvis's aunt no matter what. And Vester was Vernon's brother, so he would have been Elvis's uncle no matter what. But they got married. Not a lot of people know that Gladys used to date Vester, and Cletus used to date Vernon. But at some point, they did a magic switcheroo. And nobody knows how it happened. But those four ended up being married to their sweethearts for the rest of their lives, but not the ones they started with. So it's a beautiful story, but it's not one for this video. We're looking at this particular Bible by Vester and Cletus that was given to Elvis. And I have a little bit more information I wanted to share about it that I did not get into yesterday's broadcast. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, have I misplaced this? Oh, here we go. So Elvis had underlined quite a few different passages in here. And so I wanted to talk about some of the different passages that he did underline. We looked at a few of them yesterday, but we don't have pictures of all of them. But I still wanted to read them into the archive. And I also want to tell this little story that Shirley Dew, who was Joe Esposito's girlfriend in the 1970s. So this would be after Joe and Joni had split. And Joe ended up with a girlfriend. Her name was Shirley. Some of you may know that Shirley wrote a book. And she referenced Bibles several times in the book. And one of her references was Elvis loved books and would read quite often for recreation when he was confined to his room. He was a very intelligent man, and he would openly express his willingness to learn. He especially loved to read the Bible. We would have conversations about it, and he once showed me his personal Bible. It had so many things underlined in it that it was falling apart. He must have read it so many times to have had those pages so tattered and worn out. Now, we don't know exactly what Bible Shirley is referencing, but when you look at this Bible that we have seen the inside of in the previous episode, a few pictures of the inside. And we saw things that were underlined. And Shirley said that this was his personal Bible that she saw. This sure looks like his very personal Bible. And that it had so many things underlined in it that it was falling apart. This looks a little bit like it's falling apart. And that he must have read it so many times to have had those pages so tattered and worn out. And we saw on the inside that some of the pages were a little bit tattered. And here's some of the passages that Elvis underlined. One was Luke 9:25. For what is a man advantaged if he gain the whole world and lose himself or be cast away? And so many people have wondered what Elvis was searching for when he read through the spiritual texts like Impersonal Life that we're looking at. But I think this might be one of those things right there. He did not want to lose himself. He had gained the whole world. And so this was something he had to worry about. And Elvis wrote as a note, to judge a man by his weakest link or deed is like judging the power of the ocean by one wave. I'm not sure if Elvis thought that up himself or if he's quoting something that he wrote. I think we might run into that quote at some point. He also wrote this quote, or this note, which I believe may be another quote. There is a season for everything. Patience will reward you and reveal all answers to your questions. I think we actually saw that yesterday. I remember the word season in the Impersonal Life. We'll have to look. And Elvis paraphrased Psalm 1101 when he wrote as a note, "In the Lord I place my trust, and he will guide me." And he underlined Psalm 43:03, next to which he wrote, "Lord, send me light to guide me." He also wrote a note next to Psalm 46:10 that says, "Be still and know that I am God." Well, I think we know where he got that quote from. It definitely came from the Impersonal Life. We've read it several times now. It's one of the first instructions that you cannot know what's being said in the book or in your heart until you be still and know that I am God. Below Psalm 81, Elvis wrote, "Sing the Lord's praises." I think that one was probably important for him because he did sing the Lord's praises. And he had the Lord's praises sung before his shows. And Elvis referenced Psalm 118, verses 5 through 9, in a note that he wrote that said, "Trust in the Lord, not man." That one probably resonated with Elvis because I see in him a man that's constantly searching for who he can trust. And that he does place his trust in men. And that often those men let him down. I don't know if that's because Elvis placed his trust in the wrong individuals, or because all individuals are weak and over a long span of time they're eventually going to let somebody down, or whether his expectations were too high, or what exactly he was trusting them with. But here he writes, "Trust in the Lord, not man." And near Psalm 138, Elvis wrote, "The highest graces of music flow from the feeling of the heart soul." I think the Psalms really spoke to Elvis because they're all songs. And he was a singer. And so I think he had an affinity for the poetry of the lyrics. I think he probably understood lyrics deeply. And that's one of the reasons that he was a success in this field. You know, he chose this music that he was performing. And I think some of that had to do with the lyrical input, the message of the songs, even in the early days. I mean, he wasn't necessarily messaging Christianity back then, but he was messaging how he felt. And how he felt was resonating with every teenager in the country because they all felt the same way. He was reaching something deep inside people. And then when he changed his focus to these religious and spiritual studies, he brought that same depth of clarity for the lyrics to the songs that he would sing with them. And I think when he read the Psalms, Elvis underlined portions of Psalm 149, including verses 5 through 6, which read, "Let the saints be joyful in glory. Let them sing aloud upon their beds. Let the high praises of God be in their mouth, and a two-edged sword in their hand." And below this, Elvis wrote, "Sing, for the glory of God. And so I don't know when he wrote this there, but I think he's telling us that when he sings, all of his songs, they're for the glory of God, even the secular ones. And I think that's why he gets so offended in the 50s when the reporters say that he is a problem for the church, that what he's doing is sin. And he's able to say it's not sin, it can't be sin, because I'm doing it for the glory of God. That's what's in my heart when I sing the songs and when I do the performances. And Jen says that Elvis, being Elvis, had to be wary of who he trusted. We all do, but him in particular, and that was incredibly hard. I think so. And I think the temptation that surrounded Elvis, that made it even harder for him, because people, no matter how good they were, there was a constant temptation. It was always in their face. I think that many of us probably would not leave cash lying around, even with our families only present in our homes. Don't just leave it lying on the dresser or out on the kitchen table, because it's a temptation. It's a horrible temptation. And people will somehow find a way to rationalize what they're doing. They won't see it clearly even themselves as an offense against you to take what's not theirs, but which is yours, especially if you have freely shared with them for a long time. And so I think it became very common for the people that were around Elvis to, he was a very welcoming and hospitable person that said, treat what is mine as yours. And they came to believe it was theirs. And Gunn says that Elvis trusted men too much, but his expectations were not too high. And I think that's a very valid opinion. Is it too high an expectation to expect your friends to be loyal to you, especially if you have basically provided everything in that person's life by that point in time? Probably not. Now, can everyone live up to that expectation? Well, I think we know it's clear that many, many, many people cannot live up to those expectations. Should they? I'm sure they should. Elvis wrote in this Bible, "There is a season for everything. Patience will reward you and reveal all answers to your questions." And we saw him write something very similar also in this Bible. So this is a quote that resonates with Elvis, that there's going to be a time for everything, that he has to be patient, that he will be rewarded for the patience, and his answers are coming. He's got to keep looking. And Gunn says, is that too much? I don't think so, Gunn. I don't think it's too much to expect. Is it too much to deliver? That's the question that I'm asking. As a person going through your entire life, is it too much to deliver to never sin against another person? Now, we don't call it sin, because we reserve that word for what you do against God. But when you offend another in some manner like that, I'm not saying that the expectation shouldn't be there. I'm saying that a lot of people are weak and they cannot live up to those expectations. They are mortal. But I think at the same time, some of them leap into the pool of not hitting the expectations, right? Like the pool of sin. They don't mind jumping in and wallowing around and doing whatever they're doing, and they rationalize their things the way that they do. But I do believe that there are some people that fight mightily against their temptations and their sin, but they still eventually fall. And I think that when you're Elvis, you live in mythical terms. You're living a life that's bigger than life. Even during your lifetime, you are a legend. And so that proves that you're this mythical figure. And you have all of what goes with the myth around you. And in every myth, there are those who are tearing down the hero, even though they may be friends of the hero. It's in every myth. Every story that means something deeply to us. So, should Elvis have had better friends? Should those friends have been better? Absolutely. But they all had these fractures of weakness. And I think when we look at the wedding, and we see that Red was excluded from where he felt he should be next to Elvis's side, that it caused a schism or a rupture. And I think we would have to take a very careful look at Red's behavior prior to that wedding, and then directly afterwards and for the next 10 years. But I believe that's the moment when he was really no longer truly Elvis's friend. Like, I think he might have been right up to that moment, and then it was over. And for the next 10 years, he grew away from Elvis. And he went on a path that I would not recommend and that I don't think was a good friend. And Gunn says that Elvis expected the same from others as he gave them in trust. Not too much to ask for anyone in my world. I think that's absolutely true as well. That he gave them trust, and like with Red and Sonny and Dave, who repeated what Scotty and Bill did, is they ran to the media and they made everything public, which was terrible. And Elvis never did that to anyone. He never made any of his private issues public. If he had an issue with you, it remained between you and him. So, no, I don't think he was expecting too much. I just don't think those people could deliver. Elvis also wrote in this Bible, "May our souls join the spirit of one God." May our souls join the spirit of one God. There seems to be a message of unity here. And I have a belief that one of the things Elvis was searching for spiritually was the ability to bring all of his friends, these people that he loved and that he gave this trust, he wanted to bring them all to heaven with him. But they couldn't all go to heaven because Marty, Larry, George, they're all Jewish. And Elvis has a whole bunch of other Jewish friends. Well, they're not Christian, so they're not going to go to heaven. But Elvis also has friends that are Christian, but they're not in the Assembly of God church. And theoretically, that might mean they might not be able to go to heaven either. So he wants to make sure that everyone makes it to heaven. And so he says, may our souls join the spirit of one God. So just one God, which I find very interesting. And Elvis wrote, every man can be tempted. With God by your side, you can be saved. So he wrote that in here too. And Gunn asks, why were there so many Jewish people with him? That's a good question. Some of it is, well, I would say geography. Okay, he lived in a very poor area of Memphis. And when his family was evicted from Lauderdale courts, or why did so many Jewish people live near him? Well, that's the geography. So Gunn's already guessed it. That was really part of her question. It's the geography of Memphis at that time. He lived in this really poor area. And when he got evicted from the housing project, Lauderdale Courts, they moved basically across the street. They moved around a little bit to a couple of other places that were very, very temporary, but they ended up right across the street in a house on Alabama Avenue. And they rented the lower floor, and in the upper floor was a Jewish family named the Fruchters or the Fruchters. That man, that Mr. Fruchter, he was a rabbi of a nearby synagogue. And so there were a lot of Jewish people in this particular geographic area of Memphis, and they were all going to this man's synagogue. George Klein lived in this area because he went to Hume's High School, which was the same one Elvis went to, and Rabbi Fruchter, he performed George's bar mitzvah. So when George became a man within the religion, it was this rabbi that Elvis lived under, shared the house with, that had done his bar mitzvah. So I always thought that was an interesting connection too. Now Marty, I think he lived in the same area because his family was Jewish and they'd moved from New York. And so they moved to an area of Memphis that had a lot of Jewish people in it. So my guess is that, I'm not Jewish myself, and I've never picked out a place to live due to religion, but I'm thinking if you're part of a smaller community like that, you may research where you're going to live and try to live near your religious areas, your centers. And Jen says that it's interesting how many Jewish families lived in the South and not the North. That might have something to do with it too. The Southern United States, I'm not sure. I think a lot of Jewish people lived in Chicago and New York. And then there was a massive number of Jewish people that lived in Hollywood and Los Angeles. So when he began working in Hollywood and Los Angeles, or in the entertainment industry in general on either coast, he was also, he met a lot of Jewish people. I think the guys that were running Hill and Range were Jewish, which was his publishing company. Not positive about that, but I think so. And Gunn says, did he meet any Jewish girls? Well, he must have, right? Did he date any Jewish girls? I'm not thinking of any right off the top of my head. But I don't think I can identify a woman that he dated that was not Christian, or that could not have potentially been Christian. In fact, many of them were very Christian. So maybe that was one of his criteria, because I think he did date with an eye towards marrying someone, and I think he really wanted someone from the Assembly of God Church, but that's an interesting question. I haven't really thought about how Elvis may or may not have thought about religion during dating. And Colleen says the city that she lived in back in the day was divided by nationalities. That's interesting, Colleen. I think that was a lot truer back in the day. I think people are able to move around a lot more, and then they're able to... I think that's the change in the suburbs as well, and the conglomeration of where you used to live inside the cities. Those areas have all gotten so old that everyone's moved out of them, and now, they've gone to rot, and now new people have moved in. And so I think a lot of that has kind of been destroyed. But yes, I think it was in the 50s and 60s much more common to have areas of people of the same nationality living together. It might still really be common in big cities. I don't know. I don't live in a big city, so. I did live in Florida for quite a while, but Florida is a mismatch of everything because everybody moves to Florida or tries to come down and live at some point. So it's an interesting area because of that. Let's take a look at some more pictures I have for you. This is the new Bible that I promised that we would see today. This Bible Elvis acquired in 1959. We don't know how he got it. I believe it was given to him by a fan, or maybe a family member. But it is bound in black leather with the words Holy Bible and the harvest is great and the laborers are few, and a picture of Jesus gathering reeds embossed in gold on the front cover. This Bible was originally published in 1955, and it was distributed for several years thereafter, because they tend to print these Bibles year after year for a long period. This volume shows very little wear. So this doesn't appear to be a Bible that Elvis read a lot, but he did write things in it. Elvis wrote on the first page a list of his family members' birthdays and a reminder note concerning an uncle's hardware store and that he owed that uncle some money. Now, what we don't have is a picture of that page. And I don't know where a picture of that page would be. Maybe with the person who bought this Bible. But as far as I know, there's actually only one picture that's available to the public of this Bible. This cover that you're seeing is not actually Elvis's Bible. This is a cover of a very similar Bible, but his Bible had basically the same amount of wear. It looked just like this. There is a very little tiny picture of the cover of his Bible, but it's so small I really couldn't even bring it up here. But this is the identical Bible. From the inside of that identical Bible, we can see the copyright of 1955. That's how we know it was printed in 1955. Or it was copyrighted in 1955 and then printed in a subsequent year, but probably close to 55. This is a page out of the front of the Bible. It says the Holy Bible, Spiritual Harvest Edition, Authorized King James Version, with the words of Jesus in red, and all proper names self-pronounced. So they have some special text in here to let you know when Jesus is talking. That's interesting, that it's in red. And it's complete with page reference index, a directory of subject headings, laws of the Bible, and other clarifying features. And that the supplementary material in this Bible, which is the reference stuff they just mentioned, it was conceived by and produced under the direction of Melbourne I. Feltman. And then it says that this was distributed by this mercantile company in 1958. Now, this is not the page directly from Elvis's book, but if it was, with the 58, that would indicate it was pretty new when he got it in 59. Now, this actually is a page out of this book. And it says, well, Elvis has written a note on it. And it says, "I love you, Mama, Elvis Presley, 59. So this would be the year after Gladys had died. Elvis writes a note to her, letting her know that he loves her. And he puts the year 59. Seems a little unusual that he puts a year. As far as I know, this is really Elvis's writing. People have paid a lot of money for this book. I don't know that it's ever been subjected to a handwriting analysis, but whoever bought this book, they gave a quote to the press that they paid a considerable sum of money. And the book was put into the Museum of the Book. The Museum of the Book is, as far as I can tell, is a museum that doesn't actually exist. And there are museums like this. They basically exist as a collection, but not as a geographic place. Like, you can't go and see this collection somewhere all the time. It travels from place to place. And one place it traveled to, I believe, let me check this. Well, I don't have it noted here. I think one of the places this traveled to was a exhibit where it sat next to, like, some of the crown jewels from England or something like that. But it goes from place to place. I have no idea where it's at or if you could see it at this moment. The website's not really up to date, and this purchase of this book was a long time ago, like 15 more or more years ago. So the guys owned it for a while, and some people have been able to see it, but I can't tell you where it's at today. And it's also stating that on the last page, under a handwritten note in blocky capital letters stating August 14th as the date of his mother's funeral and Forest Hills Cemetery address. Okay, so I think that is Forest Hills Cemetery address that we can see, yeah, at the very top of the page. You can just barely read it. He has apparently written in the date of his mother's death. Or somebody has. It's pretty neat writing up there. But an interesting Bible, right? Hi, Anna. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And so we've seen this page before out of the Impersonal Life. It's the beginning of chapter 2, so we've actually read this part. But I want to go through a few more of these. And here Elvis is underlined in the Impersonal Life. My instructions here and given. You shall very soon know me. and I will give you to comprehend all of my word wherever written, in book or teaching, in nature, or in your fellow man. This is page 37 of this particular copy. So it's fairly early in the book. And we don't know what page this is on, but he's underlined, all you have or are, be it of good or evil, or blessing or suffering, of success or failure, of riches or lack, I have allowed you, or attracted to you. Why? For use, in awakening you to a recognition and acknowledgement of me as the giver of all that is good. So this is saying everything that comes into your life has been sent to you by the giver of all that is good. And so even the things that you see that's terrible or bad or evil, those that you perceive that way, he still sent them, and they're for your good. Here he's written, and we looked at this once before, some crazy numerology, it looks like to us. I don't think Marion is here with us at this moment, but Marion has asked me, how does he get to the number 8 in his name, or as his lucky number? And she's tried to do the numerology with his birth date, and I think somebody else had tried it with different variations of his name, Elvis Presley, Elvis Aaron Presley, because you can assign number values to some of the letters. I've looked into this some more, and it turns out that his lucky number 8 is based on his birth date, but it's the day of his birth. So he was born on January 8th, 1935. So the numerology looks at the date of the birth, not the entire date, but the day, as the lucky number. So for him, it's 8. Now, for other people, let's say you were born on the 15th. Well, then you would most likely, in most cases, because 15 is not a distinct number itself, they want like a single digit number. You would add those two numbers together, and you would come up with a 6. 5 plus 1 is 6. So if you were born on the 17th, you would have the same lucky number as Elvis, 8. Now, other people choose their lucky numbers based on other parts of the numerology, but that is a very common way to do it, and apparently that's the way Elvis did it. He chose 8 because of January 8th. But he also had an affinity for 9 because, as Marion has pointed out, it tends to come up 9 when you do the other methods. And Gunn says, didn't he write those words in a Bible he gave his mother? I love you, mother. I don't know. I don't have a Bible. As far as I know, I don't have an example of a Bible that Elvis gave to Gladys. This is as close as I know that it comes, that he wrote this about his mother after she was gone. And I think people tend to refer to this as the Gladys Bible, which I think sounds confusing because it sounds like Gladys owned it. And Gunn says, should we believe in numerology? In my opinion, should we believe in numerology, or in Elvis's opinion? Elvis really liked numerology. He had a great affinity for it. I personally see numerology like many other things that is invented by people, including language and including time. You know, time doesn't exist. We perceive time because of the mortal beings that we are, and then we have named it, and then we do these crazy things to track it. But we've kind of made all that up. Math in itself is something we made up. We invented it as a model to better understand the world. And that's what time is. It's a model about how the universe moves, how the universe exists in a continuum, but time itself is our idea. It's hard to grasp, but numbers, they're our idea. When you look at 3 apples, there's not 3 apples there, there's some apples. Now, we've named them 1, 2, and 3 because we have the capacity in our brains to distinguish between the 3. Other creatures are not able to distinguish between specific numbers of any item. They see one item or a bunch of them, right? It's either one apple or a whole bunch of apples. There's no in between. It's kind of a binary thing. Humans are able to distinguish each apple as a separate entity, and therefore we number them in order to better clarify them in our own heads, to keep track of them. And then we've come up with all these ways to move the numbers together. But anytime that we assign a number to anything, it's just a model of the universe. It's not the universe itself. So is there meaning in the numbers? Well, there's any meaning you want to put in them because we made them up in the first place. Now, is there a meaning that you can share with others? Well, that's part of communication. That's what numerology is more about. They're communicating these messages between each other with these numbers. Well, certainly that's valid, but is there truth in the message? Not because of the numbers themselves. No, I would say no, because numbers aren't real. And Gunn says, what use do we have for numerology in life? People find meaning out of this. You know, it's a search for meaning. And a lot of people, I think, spend a lot of time searching for meaning in their lives. And Jen says that she loves that he was into numerology. I think it's a habit or a hobby that does cause you to think deeply about philosophical items. So it could be very useful in that manner, which is, as it was intended to be, a model to help you understand how the universe works. And Gunn is asking, does one have to believe in God to believe in numerology? I think it's probably the opposite way, that people, in fact, this is one of the things they kind of dig at Elvis about, is that numerology is, they see antithetical to religion. That numerology is akin to astrology, which I think it kind of is. But I don't personally have a affinity for astrology either, but I do think that people use it, like numerology, as a model of the universe to try to get a better understanding, and that it has some kind of meaning for them. Now, is it the right meaning? I don't know, but it has some kind of meaning for them. And Jen says that you don't need to believe in God for numerology, but she guesses some do. And Gunn says she doesn't know anything about numerology. I don't really either. I do have one of his numerology books, a copy of the text from that book, so we're going to have to go look and see if it's public domain or not, but we might get through that one. I have determined that The Prophet is public domain, so eventually we'll get to do that book. Let's move on to a piece that we haven't seen yet. This is also from the Impersonal Life, but it's from a section that we did not read. It's from the introduction to the first edition. And the reason that I did not include the introduction is that it wasn't written by Joseph Benner. So it really doesn't have, to me, it's not the book. It doesn't really have anything to do with the book. Somebody else telling you about what Joseph Benner's about to tell you, so I find it distracting myself, but Elvis apparently found things in it that he underlined. And it's basically giving you instructions that you should approach this with a quiet mind and that you got to still your intellect. And we hear all that in the first 2 chapters. So I'm not really positive why they even put this into the book. But Elvis does underline a lot of it because it is summarizing a bunch of what's in the book. And to read some of the things that he underlined, I'm going to read like a part of the middle. The same self that in other moments of quiet points out to you your mistakes, your follies, your weaknesses, and is ever chiding and aiding you to live up to its ideas, which it continually holds before your mental gaze. So when you do something wrong, a lot of people would say that your conscience speaks up and it bothers you that you've done this wrong thing. And eventually you have to do something to appease your conscience to get it to quiet down. And this book is identifying that that conscience it's not Jiminy Cricket, as Walt Disney may have us believe from Pinocchio, but it's God in your heart, your divine self, the impersonal self, telling the brain you, the secular you, that, hey, you messed this up. And it's because you didn't listen to start with, probably. And he's also underlined that the loving Father is found to be ever present. So I think that's Elvis telling us that he believes in a God who is always with you. And Gunn says that the more I learn about Elvis, the more magic it becomes and surprising. Yes, he's a deeper thinker than you would be led to believe by those who surrounded him and wrote books who were not themselves deep thinkers. I think this is one of the reasons that people love Larry Geller's books so much. So even though Larry is trapped in his own perspective of the events, and he is very trapped in that perspective, although a lot of it is a very lovely perspective, and he sees a lot of beauty in things that the others don't see. So, but I think also the fact that he presents Elvis as a deep thinker and someone who reads and wrestles with these philosophical ideas, that resonates very deeply with other people who know Elvis was a very intelligent person, but we don't see it reflected in stories about firework battles and other fun things that he did, which are still awesome stories. And we definitely want to hear about them, but they're only one small facet of this man. Now, this is the front cover of the Impersonal Life, one volume of it, one printing. Larry would buy these printings, these various copies, like 100 at a time, like a big box of them. But they reprinted this book a lot because it's in the public domain, so they can like freely print this thing and make money off of it. Even it might have even been public domain back in the 60s. It was written in 1914, and I'm thinking it fell into public domain like 64, but I can't remember. The laws were different back then. But it definitely is now, and that's why they're still printing it. Kind of like they continue to print the Bible because they don't have to pay anybody for the text. But this particular copy, this exact copy, well, Elvis gave it to somebody very special. This copy was personally owned by Elvis. It contains many underlined passages. This is the 34th edition, and it's hardbound from 1974. Elvis has written notes in it in blue ink that say, we have a few examples here. One is to do your will and mine, or I'm sorry, let me say this again. One is to do your will and my purpose. Another is show me the way and I will follow. Elvis has also written, he is within us at all times. He is always there. Elvis has written, he has appeared. Rejoice that new doors have been opened. And he also writes, the road to seeking this knowledge never ends. Another notation, I will sing his praises for all to hear and to spread his message to those I can. So Elvis wrote those things within this particular copy of the book. And then he gave this book to Aunt Delta. Delta Biggs, who lived at Graceland with Elvis, the daughter of Minnie Mae, Elvis's grandmother, who also lived at Graceland. Delta was the sister of Vernon and Vester Presley. Vernon was Elvis's father. Delta Biggs, her husband, Elvis's beloved Uncle Pat, had passed away January of 1967. And Delta had called Elvis. Didn't know what to do. Elvis brought Delta to his home immediately, jumped into action, sent the guys together, sent Marty Lacker. Marty Lacker and another man, another member of the Memphis Mafia, they went down, they gathered Delta and all the belongings they could fit into the cars. They didn't have much. They traveled around a lot. So they lived out of suitcases, basically. At that time, Pat was trying to start something down south, a new business venture. And they made all the arrangements to get Pat brought back to Memphis. And they brought Delta back, and she lived at Graceland ever since. And Elvis gave her this copy of the Impersonal Life, which apparently is dated March 1978, somewhere in it. So I don't know if that's the date that he gave it. Well, it couldn't be. I think that's the date that she has sold it or given it away to somebody. And she's written a note in it that says, Elvis always read a lot. Or I'm sorry, this is from a letter that she included with the book, so it's not in the book itself. It says, Elvis always read a lot. Of course, his favorite book was the Bible, but he reads all kinds of books about religion. Elvis would also always underline certain passages and write notes in the margins of all his books. This small black book with gold lettering on the cover, called The Impersonal Life. So the book looks kind of green to us, but I think that's because of the way they took the picture. But it's actually a black cover. She says, Elvis gave me this copy in 1976. So that's when he gave it to her, 1976. And I have had this book since then. And I believe she gave it to a fan named Greg Page, who I think is a fan who befriended Delta during this period of grief after Elvis had passed away. And that brings us to the end of another episode. But I wanted us to get a chance to see Aunt Delta's personal copy of the impersonal life, so he did give it to family members as well as friends. And Gunn says that I never knew Elvis was such an intelligent man until now. And Jen says that she loves all the sides of Elvis, but this side is something I could spend hours with. And Gunn agrees. And so we'll come back again in the next episode, and we'll spend another hour looking through. We're going to have to finish chapter 2 of The Impersonal Life. I was planning to get to it today, but I'm glad we got this chance to slow down and go through these other books so that we can see how important these really were to Elvis's life. And I'm going to end now with a song, and this is going to be Cross on the Circle, because it speaks about Elvis's thoughts about religion, and that when he saw the cross on Circle G, he knew this is what he needed to do.
He saw the cross at dawn and said, "It's a good omen, and a dream again." At the break of dawn, through the window pane, he saw a cross in morning rain, white as grace, tall as prayer, calling him to build and share. Not a kingdom, not a throne, but a place of love alone, where laughter rides on horse's breath and peace outshines the fear of death. Come home to the circle and the sign, where the lake reflects the holy line. No one needs money, no one needs fame, just a handshake and a name. Come home where the cross stands tall. Come and share the love of all. Mobile homes and barbecue nights, trucks and trials and porch light rides, the hand-picked heart to share the dream, a mythic village by the stream. This is more than land, it's grace, refuge carved in sacred space, a gift of love to friends and kin, protected from the world's loud din. Come home to the circle and the sign, where the lake reflects the holy line. No one needs money, no one needs fame, just a handshake and a name. Come home, come home, where the cross stands long. Come and share the love of all. Oh, come and share